Mary sure as hell doesn't want this little lamb. The sheep on this farm have turned to the bad side. So get the flock out of here and get ready for the violence of the lambs and sheer terror. We watched Black Sheep. We watched it so you don't have to. So you know what that means.
Horror, so bad it's scary. Splitting up is never okay. Plot, who needs it? Don't turn on the lights. Cars don't ever start, but that's alright. Running upstairs instead of out the door. Good acting, what do we need that for? Horrible horror, so bad it's scary. Enjoy the show, but not really.
What's up, Moon Goons? Welcome to the next episode of Horrible Horror, the podcast where we watch the worst of the worst in horror movies. Movies so bad they're scary. I'm your host, Marshall Hampton. With me today is my buddy. I said Betty. He's my buddy. My co-host, Mr. Aaron Southworth. Aaron, how are you doing on this fine Saturday?
I can be your Betty.
Yeah,
I can be your little Betty.
you be my Huckleberry.
No. I don't know. Whenever I hear Huckleberry, I know it's like a cool, but I just think Dingleberry. Like every time. And I know there's Huckleberries and Huckleberry Pie and stuff, but for some reason, I don't know. I just got a weird association.
Yeah, that is a little weird.
Yeah.
All right. Before we jump into this movie, we have some big news to announce. If you've been following us on our Facebook page, I've been putting a few things up there on like some hints about it. But I'm going to go ahead and announce it now. This Tuesday, this week, we will actually be having a interview with one of the stars of one of the worst movies we've ever seen on this show. She has agreed to sit down with us over Skype, I believe, and answer all of our questions and talk about the abomination that was the trap door.
Bum, bum, bum. Now she's the survivor.
She is the survivor. Who are you? Yeah, I was about to say who are you? Who might this be? You might be asking, and it is Sarah. I'm probably gonna butcher her last name, Wagenvood or something like that. I'm thinking it's German, so it could be
Sarah Wagenvoog.
It could be Wagenvood, but I'm thinking it's German, so it's probably Wagen. I don't know. I'm going to butcher it, but she will be here on Tuesday, along with her friend Paul, who was a production assistant or producer, or I got to get that, looking him up there, but he also worked on the movie as a behind-the-scenes type guy. So we're going to have people here to answer our questions and dive into that giant pile, the Mount Everest of shit that is the trapdoor.
Yeah, it's really cool. So we thank her a lot, and him, both of them. Thank you so much for sitting down with us and talking. But I also gotta say, I gotta give it up to Sarah Wagenvoog or whatever her last name.
Yeah,
we'll find that out.
We'll find that out.
Because a lot of people who have tricky last names often will change it. You know.
No, she kept it. She kept it real.
Yeah,
she kept it real. So that's that. We will. So excited about that. But let's move into this week's movie, which was this is week 2 of our fan submitted movies. So this was submitted to us by our listener and fan Milo Pantone. I hope I get his name right, but Milo P. So he suggested this one, so we went out and I bought 2 copies of it from Amazon and gave one to Aaron, and we did this.
Here we go. Yeah, thank you, Milo, for the suggestion.
This movie was released on March 29th of 2007. It is a New Zealand film. It is from Down Under.
Yeah, well, not quite down under.
Not
there,
quite.
Mate, you know, it's close enough. Yeah.
Not slightly down under. Like, not as down
into
as
the
down
side.
Under.
Down under and to the side.
Down into the side. You can actually find the movie on YouTube, supposedly, along with iTunes, Vudu, Google Play. But like I said, we just got it on Amazon. We just bought the disc on Amazon. It was really cheap. It's written and directed by Jonathan King. The cast, nobody you're really gonna like stands out because they're all like New Zealand actors.
Right.
No, there's a few interesting things. A lot of several of these people had some kind of experience working on either The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings.
Well,
trilogy.
That's not a big shocker at all.
Also, 4 of the people in this movie have all appeared on Xena, the Warrior Princess. 3 of them were on Hercules, and 5 of them have been in some form or manifestation of a Power Rangers TV show or movie.
That's weird.
Yeah,
We had a Power Ranger thing last week, too.
Yeah, it's
or a couple weeks ago. Oh, it was Trapdoor. Because I was listening to Trapdoor and
Spike Skullovich.
Yeah, Spike Skullovich.
Scrawny
right.
hipster Rick.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, and the only there is two other horror connections I'll make. The older woman who plays Miss Mac, Glennis Levistam, I probably butchered that.
We're not good at pronouncing names.
She was Nora Matheson in Dead Alive, which is a classic horror movie. Also directed Peter Jackson, who did Lord of the Rings.
Yep. Again, New Zealand movie.
Yep. And the man who plays Angus in this, Peter Feeney, he was in 30 Days of Night, which is a pretty solid little horror movie. He did Spartacus, God to the Arena, and he was in Ash vs. the Evil Dead. So there's your other horror connections for this cast. Other than that, it's all a bunch of New Zealand people. So let's go get some sheep.
Let's get in there. Yeah.
All right. So the movie opens with this beautiful view of the New Zealand countryside. It's pretty much the Shire at this point.
It
looks
really is gorgeous.
It really is.
And it's a lot of awesome sweaters in this movie, too. But I mean, I guess if you're working with sheep all day, you better have badass sweaters.
Yeah. So this herd of sheep is being corralled by a father and his two sons, or at least one of his sons. And
2 kids.
Yeah, while this other teenager in a leg brace watches off from the distance, and then just walks off.
And you can tell there's some
Animosity.
there's some jealousy going on. And I'm thinking, is it because he's got a bad leg? But he's got the weakest, slightest little limp. I mean, it's not really that effective.
And it's like not even a full leg brace. It's like from the ankle to the knee. It's like a shit calf brace or something.
Yeah, like on the shin. Yeah,
and it's not. And the weird thing is, like, it's not like the Forrest Gump leg brace. It's not like they're running like herding sheep on foot. They're riding ATVs. So why couldn't a kid in the leg brace ride an ATV? Like, why is he left out of this?
Yeah, and there's definitely some favoritism that he feels jealousy because he thinks his younger brother is the favorite.
Which is weird because it took me a while. It wasn't until I just read that note, because there are 2 kids on ATVs, and then the third kid, like, well, who the fuck is the third kid?
Well, they come back.
But then I'm guessing the third kid is Tucker, who comes in later. Is that him?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So anyway, roll the title card. So the kid with the leg brace now has an axe, and he just walks up to the sheep that's tied up to a post.
So there's a whole bunch of fucking sheep that they're corralling, but it looks like there's one pet sheep.
Yeah, you can like the pet, and
he's like tied. It's like a dog tied up outside.
Yeah,
he's like tied up.
Exactly.
Eating, yeah.
So the other son who was herding sheep, he comes back home. And he looks for Dudley, which is the name of the sheep. So it's
Dudley.
the pet sheep Dudley.
Dudley, where are you, Dudley?
Yeah, Dudley.
Yeah.
And so in the barn, the kid's name is Henry, and he's in the barn, and he finds this pool of blood dripping blood.
Yeah, it's scary. It's setting up. He walks into the barn. It's dark.
And then dropping from the rafters is the skinned, flayed remains of Dudley hooked to chains. This drops from the rafter.
It's pretty fucking gruesome.
It is. The kid's freaking like, ah, as he rightfully should be. And then the older brother, who we find out, is obviously the older brother, Angus, in the leg race, he rushes Henry from the shadows wearing the pelt and head of Dudley on his head. And he's going, blah, blah. He's just screaming.
It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that is really fucked up.
That kid's got some fucking issues.
Yeah, that is like serial killer red flag right there.
Yeah. I think Hank Hill. That boy, right? You know, that
was a good Hank Hill.
Thank you. But yeah, it's just whoa.
Yeah,
whoa. It's pretty intense.
Yeah. So Angus is staying over Henry, and he's covered in sheep's blood. And he's just screaming, and then this older lady just appears in the barn doorway.
She's like, "Boys, knock it off!" Like she's not like, "What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
What is going on?"
Like,
she's just like, "Boys,
boys, stop it."
You know. Whoa!
Yeah, she's like, "Come on in, it's time for dinner or something."
No, it was the accident. And
then all of a sudden,
it's like, "Boys, your father's had an accident." So not only is Henry being traumatized, one, his pet just got killed.
Yeah,
his brother is wearing it and screaming in his face. I mean, in a horrific, like traumatizing way. Then he's like, "Your dad's dead." All that happened.
That's all the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Poor Henry.
So we jump 15 years in the future, where grown-up Henry is in the backseat of a cab and he's having a panic attack.
Right.
You don't really see why at first until you kind of pulls out and you see the cab is just surrounded by like hundreds of sheep that are like block the road.
Right.
And the cabbie's trying to like talk to Henry, to like make small talk while they wait for the sheep to kind of disperse.
But Henry just can't. He can't deal.
Exactly. He's just freaking out. And eventually the sheep it thins out enough, and the cab continues on down the road. Before we go on, let's our drink of the day. We are drinking. We couldn't find New Zealand beer. We tried.
Yeah.
But so the next best thing is Foster's. So we're gonna drink some Foster's.
All right.
So. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, down under, but not quite. Yeah, we tried New Zealand, we just couldn't find any. But we got the big ass cans of Foster's. So.
So the cab passes this car on the side of the road that has a "Meat is Murder" bumper sticker on it, and so that kind of sets up,
clues you in
on what we're about to meet. And this leads us to the hippies. This couple of hippies hopping a fence and this biplane flying over their head at the same time. The cab pulls up to this really nice white country house.
Oh, yeah,
cool
it's a beautiful house.
And Henry tells the cabbie to wait for him while he goes inside. The house is dark, and there are several ram's heads like mounted on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so Henry finally finds this old picture of like him, his brother, and their father standing in front of this biplane, which is the one we just saw fly overhead. Mm-hmm. And there's this double barrel shotgun as this gets pressed to the back of his head out of nowhere. And we hear the voice of an old woman telling him not to move. And basically Henry just turns around and gives this woman a hug. And
she recognizes, she goes, "Oh, it's Henry, oh!"
Yeah, it turns out it's Miss Mac, from the old woman from the beginning of
It's
the
the
movie.
lady who told them their dad had an accident. Yeah,
I don't really know the relationship, but she's not the mom, obviously. And they never call her grandma. It's always Miss Mac. So is she like just a housekeeper? Or
I would suppose,
a worker?
Yeah,
Like,
that would be my guess. She just works on the farm there and lives there, and because there's other hands on the property that have little homes or real little living quarters.
Okay.
So my guess is that she's kind of the house, like you said,
house
housekeeper.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, essentially.
So we cut to the grown-up version of Angus now, and he's giving he's rehearsing a speech outside of in front of a bunch of empty chairs that are set for some kind of presentation. And then Angus and Henry meet up and they talk a bit, but it's not a very happy homecoming. You can tell these two really haven't settled their differences since he's butchered his pet and wore him as a hat.
Right. Yeah, Angus. That doesn't seem like they also have a little bit of an age difference there too.
Yeah.
Angus looks a little too old, much older. Like Henry looks age appropriate. He looks like he's in his early 30s.
I would say even
late 20s, early 30s. Whereas Angus looks more like closer to
40.
He's in his 40s.
Well, if you're the kids, okay, the kid, let's say maybe what, 10, 15?
Yeah, 10. He was 10. Yeah, so I guess he'd be 25.
He'd be
yeah,
25,
that's
which
right.
is age appropriate.
Yeah.
He's fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Angus, who was out clearly a teenager, probably like 16, I would say 16 in the opening, at 15, so he'd be in his 30s.
He'd be in his early 30s, but he
looks
definitely
older.
looks.
He looks older.
Yeah, and
you're right.
And that brace, that limp that he had, gone. So
magically gone.
I don't know what the point of having that was.
Which I kept expecting to come back later.
Right.
It never shows up. They never mention it.
No.
So the two, we're back to the hippies, and they're spying from this hillside on top of some sort of like facility. And you don't really know what it is at first.
It's the laboratory.
You find out later. It's the laboratory.
That's what she's.
I think that's the laboratory.
Oh, these New Zealand accents sometimes are like. They're not too heavy, but sometimes. Yeah.
But it really just kind of like a white barn in a parking lot with some great. It's not that fancy of a place.
Yeah.
And so the guy just gets up and runs down the hill.
Yeah,
as several like workers or scientists, guys in lab coats.
Lab coats are coming out, and it looks like they have coolers with them, and they're loading things onto a truck.
They're loading this large crate onto a truck, and the guy just rushes down like right into them.
No covert, nothing. He just starts jogging down towards them, but they really don't see him.
Which, oh my god,
kind of blows my mind too.
Yeah, and he steals this container of something out of a cooler marked for disposal, and then runs back to the girl.
Basically, he stole their garbage.
Yeah. So basically, now the workers see him, and they start chasing after him. The hippie gets back to the girl, who yells out, "Hey, it worked!" And the two of them run into the woods. And I'm like, what worked? You mean your carefully thought out plan of hopping a fence, running up to the people you want to steal from in broad daylight, grabbing the container right in front of them, and running away?
It worked.
I mean, yeah, that's a real Ocean's 11 heist you planned there, buddy. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and this guy who's running, his name's Grant.
Yeah, he turns out his name.
I mean,
Grant,
he's a granola crunchy motherfucker with a shitty little goatee,
Yeah.
wearing sandals. He looks like a member of Rusted Root.
He's
you
the,
know?
he's the traditional hippie you just want to punch in the face. That
Yeah,
just,
like-
you can't.
Yeah, I
annoying
mean,
hippie.
like social justice warrior, vegan
He's wearing a fish
extremist,
shirt or something like that.
right? Like, take down the industrial complex that's taking you.
Yeah,
Ah,
blah blah blah
fuck
blah.
off.
Blah. Yeah. So yeah, we used to. That's where we learned the hippie's name is Grant, and the girl's kind of pissed off at him for what his moronic actions are just running out there. And the container ends up. It turns out it's holding like a dead baby sheep
Yeah,
in like I guess some kind of liquid, but probably what's that? Formaldehyde, perhaps maybe.
toxic formaldehyde.
Yeah, toxic formaldehyde. And anyway, Grant takes off running at the sound of the workers or the guys in lab coats
Yeah,
approaching.
yeah. He's just like, let's hunker down here. Let's stay here. And he's talking about how proud he is and how he's going to make it. And the first sound, he's like, oh, and runs off.
He takes over.
Yeah.
The girl's like, "You're fucking." She just kind of stays tight right
Yeah.
behind the tree, and they just walk right past her.
They run past her.
and
Yeah.
they go after Grant. So Grant's chased through the woods. He trips over a branch. He takes a face plant into the dirt as the container flies out of his hands, and we hear it
Smash it,
smash and break off camera. He lifts his head up out of the dirt to see the broken container. At the same time, a woolless, like mutant, like baby sheep's head is seen rising up behind Grant's head, like on his back.
It looks kind of silly.
It does. And the sheep bites into Grant's shoulder, and then it's seen like biting and hanging off of his ear.
Yeah, and it's like comic relief kind of moment. I guess Grant's supposed to be the fun. First of all, we're watching a movie called Black Sheep about mutant sheep or
Yeah,
whatever. So
killer sheep.
whatever. So he's got it hanging on his ear. It's pulling like ridiculously
Way down,
long.
yeah.
He's and it's funny to see the vegan hippie dippy like trying to kill this thing violently,
Yeah.
smashing it against the tree.
He does. He tries smashing against the tree while it's still clamped to his ear, and I think he even tries to hit it with a stick and ends up hitting himself.
He grabs a big branch and tries to club it off of him.
And he finally gets a sheep off of his ear, and he tosses it aside, but he loses part of his ear in the process.
And then he just really like overreacts. Like, I understand, getting bit on the ear and that would hurt, but at the same time, he goes in like the fetal position. Like Evander Holyfield got his ear bitten off in the middle of a fight, and he jumped up and down a little bit, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I mean,
Yeah.
this guy's a bitch.
So we go back to the brothers who are going over some kind of paperwork in like the study of the house. And at first I thought I'd do with inheritance, but I was like, well, did dad like 15 years ago? That should have been taken care of.
Yeah.
It turns out later that Henry has come back to sell off his share of the farm to Angus, and so it's like business contracts are going over, finalizing that. And Angus is talking about his research and his work in agricultural science and all that, and blah blah blah. And it goes back to a shot of Grant, who's just lying on the ground as the mutant baby sheep is seen crawling away. So the sheep's still out there. And the older woman, again, Mrs. Mack, she's gutting and cleaning a rabbit while she's talking to Henry. And
Pretty graphic.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of like graphic animal slaughter. She basically then gives Henry his father's Golden Shears Award, which are for the fastest sheep
shearing
shearer in the country.
The fastest sheep shearer in New Zealand.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, Angus was gonna throw this out, so I want you to have it because you were so good at this too. You were, gonna follow in your father's footsteps.
You were going to be a natural, and it's sharp. It's
a pair of giant golden scissors sticking out of a metal ball on a wooden
like plaque.
square. Yeah, wooden plaque.
So this is coming into play later.
Yeah. So the baby sheep is then seen calling out to a herd of sheep. That's often doesn't. One sheep approaches the mutant baby, and it just only to get its nose bit.
Yeah.
Like, right in the snout by the evil
sheep
baby
comes over
sheep.
to look at the baby, sniffing at it, and then the baby bites it.
And that's the last you ever see of the baby sheep, I believe. You never see the baby again. So hippie girl, she's all alone walking through the countryside as Henry is riding in a truck with some guy. It took me forever to figure out who this guy was, but it turns out it's Tucker.
Yeah.
Turns out to be Tucker. So
And Tucker was the other kid on the...
yes, and again, it took me a while. It didn't.
So he's
sink
also
in.
a helper on the
Yeah,
farm.
he's kind of like a worker now. So Tucker slams on the brakes just in time to avoid hitting this single sheep that's staying right in the road. And this is a sheep that got bit on the nose because you see its nose is kind of messed up. Tucker gets out of the truck after saying to Henry, "Come on, farm boy, let's see your stuff," as Mr. Sheep Man.
And Henry is scared.
Yeah, he's still scared.
He's shaking and
So Tucker approaches the sheep, sees the wound on its nose. He actually touches the wound, the bite mark. Where the sheep's just like, eh. And then he asks for Henry's help, but Henry's like, "Nope, I'm just gonna make a phone call." He pulls out a cell phone, and tries to call somebody. Tucker is missing, like, with his arms like underneath the sheep, trying to drag it off the road. When the hippie girl just pops up, pointing a rifle at
she
him.
grabs the rifle out of the truck that he has.
We see it in the cab,
which makes sense. You'd probably have a gun just to have on hand if you're out in the wilderness and stuff. And she takes the gun out and starts pointing it at him, and it's pretty funny. Tucker stops. He's dragging this fucking sheep in the middle, and he just goes, "Do you want my hands up?" And she goes, "Yeah." And he puts his hands up, and the sheep goes flop.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny looking.
Yeah, it actually was. Yeah, the sheep just trots off, and they stand there with their hands up. We go back to Grant, who's sitting in the forest, freaking out. He's like curled up, arms around his knees. Yeah. He's freaking
Fetal
out.
Position, yeah.
And he grabs a rabbit that just walks up right next. First of all, no rabbit's gonna walk right up next to somebody, but he grabs this rabbit
and he starts talking to it. It's like, "It's gonna be okay." The rabbit's really cute.
Yeah,
and he's like petting it, like, "It's gonna be okay. I'll protect you."
And then he bites it in the neck,
and he grabs it
and like rips a chunk out and like kills the rabbit by eating it, basically.
That was really weird.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. So the hippie girl, Henry and Tucker, they're walking through the woods because she wants to go find Grant, and Henry's asking if this is going to take long because he has a taxi waiting for him, and she says that if she can't find her friend, then she'll organize the biggest sit-in that this farm or country has ever seen.
Which is pretty funny.
And I just wrote, "Fucking hippies."
I know, but it was pretty funny because that's her threat.
Yeah, that's her threat. So when the hippie girl finds out who Henry is, she starts talking about auras and more hippie bullshit. Just all.
I knew there was something off about you. You have a weird aura about you.
Yeah. It's so annoying. So Tucker tricks hippie girl into giving him back the rifle.
Is pretty funny. He's just like, "You don't have your safety on." Or safety's on.
Yeah,
she's trying to find the safety, and he's like, "Here, let me see it." And he takes it and turns the safety. And he even like motions to give it back. Goes, "Ah!"
Yeah.
So I like Tucker.
Yeah,
I like Tucker.
All right, Aaron likes Tucker.
I do. Tucker.
So, meanwhile, Grant is off in the woods having serious issues because he seems to be kind of slightly melting a little bit. Like there's something's not right with him right now.
Yeah. His face is going through some changes.
Yeah, and we go to this old man who's just cooking in his little kitchen, little small house. And he hears a noise. He goes to check on it. And off camera, we hear the sounds of a door opening and then him screaming. And that's all we see. And he goes back to Henry, Tucker, and Hippie. And they're back in the truck. And this is where I finally learned his name was Tucker. And the girl's name is
Experience.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
It was pretty funny because they kind of looked at each other like, ugh. And experience, just ugh.
So from here on out, I just call her Hippie. It's easy.
Sure, yeah.
It's either
I'm not gonna call her Experience.
No, it's easier to type in notes and easier to say. So she tells them about this farm that subjects animals to cruel and unusual torture. And Tucker didn't see smoke billowing out from this nearby house, and they drive off to check it out. They enter the house, which is the house of the older man we just saw cooking. And his name is Mike. Apparently Tucker knows him. He's like, Mike.
That's why I was thinking maybe he's another hand who works on the property, that kind of thing.
I didn't even put that together, but I just thought it's because it's like, and out on the farm, you kind of, even though it's everything's spread out, you kind of know who your neighbors are. There's just not many people. I thought it was more like that. But you could be right. Maybe he was some kind of worker. So the kitchen now is covered in blood. But no one seems to notice.
No one seems upset about it.
Nobody comments
like,
holy shit, what's all
Jesus,
this blood
what's
doing?
all the blood? They're just like, oh, let's turn off the stove because it's burning.
Yeah, because the first comment on the house is from Hippie Chick who's saying, oh my God, the feng shui in this house is terrible.
I did like that because, you thought right on the bat it'd be like, oh my God, the blood. But she says the feng shui is horrible. And I'm like, slap her.
So another noise is heard coming from another room, and a sheep walks out. It baaaads at them a few times.
They're smiling. They're like, "Oh, look, there's a sheep in here."
And then it just charges them. And they scurry into a bedroom, slam the door closed. Henry is freaking out, having another panic attack. And then he tells them that he has avenophobia. Now, here's your one of your educational moments. Avenophobia is obviously, if you haven't put it together, it is the irrational fear of sheep. That is the proper term. It's spelled aveno and avena, but I think it's mostly avenophobia. So the sheep rams the door trying to bust in to get the three of them. Tucker just slides a dresser in front of it. Hippie blames this whole thing on the largest genetic engineering program in the Southern Hemisphere, and that is supposed to run out of a small to medium. So, let me start over. She says this is blamed on the largest genetic engineering program in the Southern Hemisphere, but we've seen where it's basically run out of like this tiny little barn.
Does she mean the Southern Hemisphere of New Zealand?
Yeah, maybe there's South New Zealand, maybe. Yeah. But, like, there's no way this thing is the largest.
New Zealand like a collection of islands. You know, it's like this.
It's like the Hawaii of Australia or something. I don't know.
It's a separate country.
I know, but anyway, and it's run. Obviously, we know now that this new program, this lab, all this is run by Angus, Henry's brother. She screams when she kind of looks down and she sees the dead body of Mike, the homeowner, who has had his throat ripped out.
Right. So he's fucked.
He's fucked.
Fucksville.
Yeah. The sheep breaks through the door, and he kind of pulls like this "Here's Johnny" moment from The Shining because the door's broken.
The door smashes through. It's like, meh.
Tucker shoots it in the head. It falls away dead, but only for a moment. The sheep pops back up, and he shoots it again, right like dead center.
Dead center, between the eyes.
And this time kills the sheep. Hippie says like she's gonna be sick, and she runs out to the back door to get some fresh air, and she finds the backyard is filled with like a dozen more sheep.
Yeah, or more. Tons of sheep.
Yeah. So slowly they start making their way through the sheep, which at this point seem to be normal sheep. Tucker goes for the truck while Hippie tries to get Henry to walk through sheep because he's freaking out. He's like holding onto the door. He looks like a kid who's like scared of a swimming pool or like hanging onto the ladder or something like that. And she starts using some hippie mumbo jumbo bullshit talking about chakras and you're a tree.
Yeah, you're a tree. You have roots that have energy and just relaxing them and, talking about using his different chakras and
but apparently this works.
And it calms him down and he's able to walk to the truck.
Yeah. And so they get in the bed of the truck but there's a small problem. A sheep has managed to get into the cab with Tucker now.
Which we never saw. He just all of a sudden is in the cab with Tucker.
Tucker floors it, causing Henry to lose his balance and grab onto Hippie's boob for balance.
It's a good handle.
Yeah. Just hand size. It's right there.
Bam.
Palm size. The sheep is repeatedly biting at Tucker, trying to nip at him. And Tucker's doing a pretty good job, fighting it off as best he can while driving. I mean, he punches the shit out of the sheep.
Yeah, he does. He's punching it a lot, but this sheep is not having it.
Keeps coming after him.
Yeah, it's a battle. My thought was just put on the brakes, brother.
Yeah,
put on
the brakes and get out.
Yeah.
So I thought the same things. Like, why? As soon as you see the sheep in the cab next to you, don't be like, I better drive. Get out. Get out first and get the sheep, then get back. I don't know. Anyway, so seeing the struggle, Henry grabs a chainsaw that just happens to be in the bed of the truck.
Well, I mean, if you got to cut back bush or
I guess,
stuff
like a fucking chainsaw just shows up.
Yeah.
But Henry loses control of it as the he starts it up and the truck swerves and it goes flying off the truck. So nothing happens with the chainsaw.
I know. I was kind of excited. I was like, ooh, chainsaw.
I kind of like the fact that nothing came of it though. I was like, I thought that was nice, fresh. So Tucker's continue to fight with the sheep, he's bashing his head against the steering wheel, causing honking the horn. The sheep finally bites Tucker on the ankle. Tucker's like, "Fuck this!" Pulls an action movie stunt. He climbs out of the moving truck and climbs into the bed with Henry and Hippie. While the sheep is seen behind the wheel, it looks like he's driving the truck now.
It's kind of funny.
It is. It's ridiculous. The truck is racing towards the cliff, so they all jump off the truck, along with a dog that just kind of shows up out of nowhere.
The dog was in the bed of the truck originally, but the dog was so obedient and just sit still, you never noticed it.
Yeah. The truck goes over the edge, and the sheep is heard bleeding all the way down. Yep. And Hippie is going on about how beautiful the view is and how high up they are, and she's like, I shouldn't want to fall from here. And then Henry turns like, well, this is where my dad fell to death. Way to go, Hippie. Way to fucking go.
Jesus.
So she turns around and spots another sheep behind them, which just farts. There's a lot of sheep farting in this. Sheep farts.
Yeah.
Tucker laughs at it, and then Hippie goes into some more hippy-dippy spiel about how animal flatulence is responsible for almost half of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Not listening to her, Tucker just scares the sheep off.
Yeah.
And we cut to Angus now. We go back to Angus, who's setting up for his speech and wandering around the property, where he comes across the cabbie sleeping in his cab, and the meter's now up to $9.99.90.
Yeah, and flips over to $1,000 dues.
Didgeridoos. Yeah.
Well, I call them dollary dues.
Dollary dues.
Yeah, that's a Simpsons reference.
And I think that's the last time you ever see the cabbie.
No, it's not.
It's not?
He comes up later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the scientist workers that were chasing Grant they've given up the chase by now, and they're kind of regrouping. One of the workers is later seen dumping something into this huge hole in the ground that's surrounded by like a metal fence.
Mm-hmm.
And when he turns to leave this fenced area, there's two sheep standing in front of him. He barks at them like dogs to try to get them to move. And then a third sheep comes out of nowhere and just bites
his
him
ass.
bites him in the ass. While a fourth sheep comes flying in from off camera, airborne, boom, and tackles the guy out of frame.
It's pretty
That
funny.
sheep's got some hops.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So Grant is now shown, he's a bloody mess. He's messed up. He's walking along through the countryside.
His face is getting weirder.
And he's like starting to sniff the air. Angus is in a car. He pulls up honking at Grant.
Because he's in the middle of the road.
Yeah, Grant is in the middle of the road. Angus gets out of the car. They exchange some heated words about sheep and Mother Nature and hippie. And it ends up with Grant biting Angus's hand and then just turns and runs away. So now suddenly this movie, this is where it turns into basically like Lord of the Rings, because it just starts showing aerial shots of the group walking over these giant ass hills.
Dude, I thought the same thing.
They're
I'm
just small mountains.
I'm back in I'm back in Hobbiton. Yeah. I'm in the Shire. We're on our way to Rivendell now.
While evil sheep watch them in the distance.
Right. It's so weird.
So during the Fellowship's journey here, hippie Baggins spews out some more hippie bullshit along their way. So Tucker stops to rest due to his sheep-bit ankle. It's hurting, it's bleeding, but Hippie just keeps on walking. Tucker takes off his boot, and holy fucking shit, his left foot has transformed into a sheep's hoof. And on cue, a herd of sheep come running over the ridge and chase after them. How the hell Tucker's running on that hoof is beyond how I can't apprehend it. Even more curious is how he manages to get his boot back on that
so
thing
easily.
Once it's off. And they all end up at Angus's laboratory, which, like I said, is just a large white metal barn, basically. And they go inside and lock the doors behind them. Inside, they find the slaughtered remains of a sheep that's been split open and hanging from a meat hook, and it's got like all these tubes running in and out of it.
And its heart is beating.
Yes, the heart is still beating. The sheep kind of comes to life, he's like, meh.
Yeah, it's twitching around.
Yeah,
and
it freaks him out. And before they can shoot the sheep, the female scientist comes out along with Angus and a few other workers. Now, during this conversation, the female scientist stabs Tuck in the neck with this giant fucking syringe. It's huge.
Knocking him out.
And injects him with some mystery liquid.
Yeah.
Angus grabs the rifle from Tucker as he falls over unconscious. And, he yells at Henry to run, and Tucker's yelling at Henry, run, go do something, just run. He actually literally says, do something, run, or something.
Yeah.
So Henry and Hippie escape, but once outside, the sheep herd charges after them.
Yeah, so the now pretty much all the sheep are pretty much bad, evil.
They're bad sheep.
Ooh.
I know.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Bad.
Yeah.
In the nearby field, they find the remains of the scientist that got bit in the ass next to like this hole in the ground. And the sheep begin to surround them as Angus comes out of the barn with the rifle. Henry and Hippie head for like that fenced-in hole we mentioned, and they shut the gate behind him. The sheep like ram into the fence. Their heads are like,
They're
poking through the.
they're slowly breaking down the fence. It doesn't look good for Henry and Hippie.
No.
And Angus is walking up, and Henry's like, help us. I'm your brother. And he's just kind of like, yeah. You can tell Angus is like, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, because Henry then slips and almost falls into the hole. But Hippie catches him just in time, and this is when Henry's yelling out for help.
He's like, help us!
And Angus, who obviously doesn't help, just says, "That's the thing about farms: accidents happen," and he just walks
away. And the sheep don't go after him because they're so concerned about trying to get to Henry and Hippie.
So Henry, he does end up falling down the hole, and he pulls that Hippie down with him, and they land on a disgusting, bloody pile of sheep remains and like other bio waste. It's pretty damn disgusting.
Right, it's pretty gross.
Hippie pulls out an aromatherapy candle from her backpack and lights it to balance her hormones.
Which is pretty funny because Henry's like, why do you need your hormones balanced now? And she's like, I jumped out of a moving truck and being attacked by crazy sheep. I had a guy pull a gun on me. And she's like, I need to fucking balance. Yeah. I need my hormones balanced now.
Yeah.
It's like, well, all right. Yeah, it's not a bad argument.
But just weird, she just pulls out this
I know, it's so
candle
funny.
from her backpack. Back in the labs, Angus talks to the sheep in a crate, and he mentions something about what happened to the idiots I sent to collect you, or something like that. It's very vague and cryptic, and that's all it is. Now we cut to 3 sheep eating the bloody and dismembered remains of 2 bodies, and then right back to Tucker, who is now laid out on a table, half covered in a sheet, next to what looks like medical equipment or an old printer. Can't really tell. And the female scientist, she comes up, removes his left boot to look at the hoof.
The hoof.
And she chalks up to spontaneous cellular transferal.
And she is amazed by it. She likes it.
Yeah.
She's like, wow,
yeah,
interesting. This is great. Yeah.
She notices the bite mark on his boot and quickly covers up the hoof.
When Angus walks back in.
Yes, exactly. Angus shows her the bite on his hand, which has now gotten gooey.
It looks real bad, but Angus is just like, yeah, I got bit by a hippie on the road. And first thing I do would be like, clean this shit off. Angus is like,
where hippies have been.
Yeah, I know.
Hippies.
You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what's been in their mouth.
No, you don't.
No.
So anyway, they
probably valerian root or something. I don't know.
So they exchange some heated words, and she tells him to put a plaster on it. Now, this is the second time in this movie I've heard someone in this movie say something like, put a plaster on it. So this leads me to our next educational moment.
Okay.
Plaster refers to a sticky plaster, which is what they call a Band-Aid in New Zealand.
Yes.
So there you go. 2 educational moments for this show. Back to Hippie and Henry. They're in this underground tunnel system, and she asks him about this deal he mentioned with Angus, and he tells her about he was going to sell the share of the farm. We already mentioned that. The candle goes out right as they hear sheep bleeding in the darkness, and the sounds of the sheep bleeding are jumping down the hole.
Yeah, so the sheep are chasing after.
They're going kamikaze. They're jumping down this hole, and the 2 of them beach feet down this dark tunnel. They wind up in this like dead end, but Henry does see this small little opening in the rocks and tells Hippie to go first as the sheep are heard getting closer. So they crawl through this, like they have to crawl on their stomachs to get through this tight and narrow little
space.
Yeah, thank you. Henry's following, but she begins freaking out. But Henry pulls out, I'm getting tongue tied. She starts flipping out, saying, "I can't do this." Is I guess claustrophobic or something like that.
She's getting scared.
And then so
Henry does the tree.
Does like reverse mind reading. Yeah. He goes, "You're a tree. You're a chakra." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Okay, it works." She's moving again. She says she's relaxed, and then we hear a fart sound. So more fart jokes in this movie, more farting. And Henry's like, "I said get relaxed, but don't get that relaxed." And she's like, "It wasn't me." And all of a sudden, the sheep starts nipping at Henry's feet from behind. So some of the sheep
has some really bad gas too, apparently.
Yeah,
so.
and sheep, like the way like 4-legged bipedal or like quadrupedals, or like their legs and knees don't like really extend like that. So how the sheep is crawling through this tiny little thing that a human has to be on their stomach for?
It's a mutant sheep, Marshall.
I guess, but it's like, it makes no sense. There's no way. So they crawl as fast as they can. The tunnel opens up, and they manage to squeeze through this tiny little opening.
We'd be fucked.
We would be fucked.
We're just too big.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I guess I'm dying in this fucking cave from a sheep. And so he tosses the Zippo on the sheep. He pulls that Zippo with lights and tosses it on the sheep, and the sheep immediately goes up and
bursts into flames.
Yeah, it's huge. It's like a goddamn Duralog.
Like it's covered in gasoline. I don't think wool is that flammable.
I mean, I'm sure it would catch, but
sure,
not like
that. Yeah.
Immediately. So the sheep burns to death while the two of them huddle close together, watching it burn.
It's a moment.
It is a moment.
It's a weird New Zealand moment.
And we go back to Miss Mac. She's making a haggis while reciting some sort of rhyme. And in comes Angus, who tells her that Henry is gone, and then goes off to freshen up. Back to Hippie Baggins and Henry Gamgee roaming the hills. They make it back to the farm where they hear someone shearing. They hear the sound of sheep shearing. So in the dark barn, they find Grant, who is now transformed into a giant man-sheep hybrid, a sheepatar, if you will.
Yeah, it's a really good creature effect.
It is.
I mean, the again, this is done by Weta Workshop, so they did stuff on Lord of the Rings, and that's badass. So
yeah, the specs in this
as
are
ridiculous
really
as it is, the effects are amazing.
Yeah, so all the people should know what a minotaur is. I just call it a sheepatar.
It does kind of, yeah, it's got that look.
It looks,
big time.
It backhands Henry, sends him flying to a bale of hay, or maybe I should say back hoofs Henry. It stares down Hippie, who tries to reason with it, or Grant.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because she's talking to him, and she distracts him long enough saying, "Have you been eating meat?
Yeah, well,
at least is it organic?"
Yeah, that comes up in a little bit. Basically, Henry grabs his shears and tries to attack it with these shears. Which I don't know what he's going to try to do to shave the thing. I don't know. But he just gets bashed away again. And the sheepatar goes out, but he can't get stuck in like some support beams. And this gives him enough time to make a run through it to the sheep stalls. Sheepatar gives chase. This is where they reach a part where they get stuck, like cornered. And in desperate move, this is where Hippie sees blood on the sheepatar's face and asks, "Have you been eating meat? Is it at least organic, or is it even organic?" And
this seems to shame Grant.
Yeah,
he's like, "Oh."
But this gives Henry enough time to undo the latch and get the gate open, and then lock sheepatar in behind them.
Mm-hmm.
We go back to the lab where the two scientists are watching over Tucker, whose teeth are changing. And Tucker begins to shake and spasm out of control, but the female scientist wants to watch and sees what happens.
Yeah, because the assistant's like, "Oh, we should give him, the injection."
Yeah, but she's like,
and
"No."
She's like, "Wait, hold on.
So,
this is great."
Yeah, and outside we see people are beginning to gather around for this Angus's speech and presentation, and this large white crate with a sheep on it is placed on the stage. Back to the lab where Tucker is further changed into a sheepatar. The male scientist takes off running at the sight of this, and while the female scientist stabs him in the head with a large syringe and injects him with this material.
And again, these creatures, it's like he's shaking his head back and forth, and he's going through several different forms or variations of a sheepatar.
Yeah.
And it's really cool looking effects.
The effects are really good in this movie. Surprisingly good
really,
from
really
what
good.
I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Once he's injected this, he shakes and spasms some more, but he changes back to normal.
He reverts back to Tucker human form.
And at this point, now I know what happened today, but I was just writing my notes as I was watching this the first time. So I put, "Oh God, please tell me we're about to get a were-sheep," because I thought he was going to be gaining power to change back and forth at will.
Oh,
I thought we were going to get a were-sheep out.
That'd be awesome.
That would have been amazing, but no, that does not happen. So she tells Tucker to rest up while she goes take care of some business, because when she gets back, she has more experiments to do on him. So at the presentation, Angus takes a stage and begins his speech, and you can see he's not feeling well.
His face, he just looks sickly.
Yeah, he's
very pale. Yeah, and he's got that plaster wrapped up on his right hand from his bite.
So the female scientist exits the labs, and she finds two sheep in the parking lot eating the remains of the male scientist who ran out a little while ago.
It's so funny because she just looks so annoyed. She's
I
like,
know.
Ugh.
I must say her reaction is priceless.
It's great. It's great.
Not like, "Oh my God!" It's more annoyance. Like, "Oh God,
what a dumbass."
Yeah. But then more sheep like come out, and now she gets chased. She runs off. As a bunch of
she's being chased through the woods.
Yeah, she gets chased into the woods by like a herd, and she's in the woods, and the sheep herd is bleeding all around her as she tries to make her way through the forest, but she gets stuck in like mud. But
yeah,
like quicksand.
It's just mud.
Yeah, but it's like
she's got heels on. By the way, I mean she's
take
not
the heels off. I'm just saying you could, if it's just mud, you could keep moving. She gets stuck, sinks like a few inches,
sinks a little bit, and stumbles.
And just stops, dead cold. So one of the sheep lunges at her, mouth open, blackout as we hear teeth chomping down on something. That's it.
She's gone. She's a goner.
Back to Angus, and the sheep in the crate, and he's bleeding louder and louder and shaking the crate a bit. Angus presents the sheep. She's like, fine, okay, here we go. So to the onlookers, as two workers kind of open the crate to reveal this beautiful, pristine sheep. I mean, it's a gorgeous sheep compared to every other sheep.
Sure. It's nice white wool. It's not dirty. It just looks like a super clean, short.
It's super sheep.
Yeah.
So the crowd is applauding while the sheep is bleeding loudly. And
this is drawing Angus's ire. He's like, quiet.
Exactly. So Miss Mac is now seen in a creek for some reason, just picking something in a basket. Like, I have no idea.
Chris.
And there's more bleeding going on. Angus is trying to calm the sheep, but you hear this low rumbling off in the distance. And suddenly this huge herd of hundreds to maybe thousands of sheep come flooding over the hillside and charge into the crowd.
It looks like an army from Lord of the Rings running over the hill.
It's like the orc army.
Yeah, the orc army's coming down. It's an army of sheep that are coming over the hills of Middle Earth
to get the fellowship.
Yeah, it's
Helm's Hold.
It's pretty epic. Yeah. It's pretty epic.
And this scene, from here on out, this movie gets insane. It's fucking crazy. People are screaming. They scatter as the sheep just charge in like cavalry and attack.
It's like a wave just washing over these people.
A white wave of wool.
Yeah.
Say that 3 times fast.
That's a white wave of wool. That's a tough one.
So the sheep just slaughter the crowd and the people. They're biting and eating everyone they see.
You know, we're seeing
one woman gets her arm bit off.
Guys,
another one has her intestines ripped out by the sheep's mouth.
And a guy gets his lips ripped off. That was bad. It's kind of reminded me a little bit of in Poltergeist when it shows those several different death scenes in the restaurant. You know, that kind of made me think. It's like
I thought the same thing.
What kind of unique ways can we have a sheep kill people?
I thought the same thing. But to bring it in, it's also like just like the battle scene in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
You have orcs and elves fighting each other. People just dying all over the place.
Sure.
So Angus makes a run for it, but he comes face to face with a sheep, right nose to nose, and the sheep just walks up to him, sniffs him, and walks away. Does not attack him.
Ooh.
Angus looks down at his bite wound at his hand, and which has now turned into a hoof. Excuse me. So Hippie and Henry watch the bloodbath from afar, and this car pulls up behind them, and it's Miss Mac. And they're like, get in! And they drive off as the slaughter just rages on behind them. And she even runs over a sheep. She drives over and sends it flying over the roof of the car.
Which was kind of funny, because then the hippie goes, yes!
Yeah.
But they look at her, and she's like, oh. She's ashamed that she's getting happy that an animal got killed.
So back at the house, Angus enters the office study with the perfect sheep in tow. He's got this perfect sheep, and he cuddles it, and he's petting it, and he's telling it everything's going to be okay.
There's some inappropriateness going on.
So Miss Mac, Hippie, and Henry, they enter the dark house now, and they try to call for help, but the phone's not working. Because it must be somebody must be off on the other side. Like another phone, the house is off the hook. So from the shadows emerges Sheepatar, who punches Henry, knocking him over the kitchen table. Miss Max tells him that her shotgun is in the pantry. Well, because every New Zealander keeps a shotgun in the pantry next to the flour.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that's common knowledge. She shouldn't have even had to say that, really.
Exactly. Not the least bit scared of Sheepatar. Miss Max just steps up to him and tells him that she's made many a meal out of the likes of you. And Henry starts throwing dishes at Sheepatar, and one turns out to be the pot with the haggis in it, which the Sheepatar then eats.
So the haggis gets knocked on the floor.
So
and Sheepatar is like, oh.
He's a cannibalistic Sheepatar.
I guess so. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cannibalistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he starts going after the haggis, and this is enough time, where Henry's got the gun. He's like, shells. Oh,
Before
she
that,
has them in her pocket.
Yeah, before that, I don't understand this. He gets a bottle of mint sauce from a shelf, breaks it, and then tosses it on, and the sauce burns Shibatar like holy water would a vampire. So I'm missing something. I don't know.
Well,
What
have
mint
you
sauce
have
is
you
or-
had mutton before, or sheep, or anything? A very common side or sauce is mint jelly or mint sauce.
Okay, I've
And-
not had the sauce. I'm missing.
And it's
that.
gross.
Okay.
I don't like it. I've had it before. And it's not good. But yeah, it's very common. It's very commonly served with lamb or sheep mutton.
Okay.
So that's the joke. That's the gag.
Okay. I was.
Oh,
I figured
mint
there had to
sauce.
be-
Yeah.
There had to be some connection. I just didn't. I didn't realize.
Oh
what.
well, I just educated you.
You educated me. So that's 3 educational moments. Anyway, so Shibatar charges Henry, knocks him over, and has him pinned to the ground. Henry's frantically reaching out for any type of weapon, and it looks like he's about to get his hands on the Golden Shear Award.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, well, there it is.
While Miss Mac struggles to get the shotgun loaded. And Hippie's just standing there watching all this. She's not really doing anything. And Mac is about to shoot Shibatar, but Hippie then suddenly springs up and says, no! Knocks the gun down. And Hippie grabs what looks like a chopstick?
No, they did make mention of the chopsticks earlier because they have some of the people who were there for the speech were from Japan. She goes, "Look, we got chopsticks."
Oh, you
Yeah.
can see a bunch of
Yeah.
Asians in the crowd.
Mhm.
Okay. So I was wondering where the chopsticks came. And she stabs Shibatar in the back with it, seemingly killing it because it just drops.
But it's Shibatar's big and it's
Yeah,
this
it's
tiny
huge.
little stick.
And Henry asks, like, what did you do? And Hippie replies, Lingu Bafa. What? Oh, well, that's acupuncture point that causes temporary paralysis or coma if I did it wrong. That's her response. Fucking Hippie.
Yeah, fucking
Jesus
Hippie.
Christ. So night has now fallen, and the super herd or flock, whatever, comes over the hillside, backlit by the moonlight. It's a pretty cool looking visual shot.
But it's
really neat
funny because
the eyes are kind of glowing in the reflective moonlight. It's kind of neat. They surround the farmhouse while the group inside is like boarding up the house and blocks the door. It's very much like Night of the Living Dead.
yeah,
style.
very, very classic zombie-esque scene. They're trying to get in, they're boarding everything
Yes.
up. It's good.
It's pretty good. And in the study, Angus just stands there looking out a window while smoking a cigarette.
With no pants
I've
on.
got no pants now.
He's got
His
no
pants are
pants
just
on.
gone.
He's still got a shirt on, his dress shirt, but he's
Why
no
is
pants.
he pantless? I have no fucking clue. And then I'm like, did he fuck the sheep? I don't know.
I think that's what they alluded to.
That's what I thought too.
Pretty sure that's what they're alluding to,
and
is that
so-
he just, because he's smoking a cigarette,
yeah.
post-coital smoke. I mean, come on.
So
He's a sheep fucker.
So Henry enters the study to use the phone, and Angus tells him he's pulled it from the wall. Henry sees the perfect sheep in there. Excuse me. And backs up, like, oh my god, sheep. And he's like, Angus, what is he doing in here? And Angus replies, you wouldn't understand. Now I put in my notes with an asterisk. Holy fucking shit, he did it. He fucked the sheep. That's where it goes. I'm like, this
Yeah.
guy, there's no doubt about it. He
Oh, yeah.
fucked this sheep.
No doubt. Absolutely. He is a sheep fucker.
So Henry grabs another rifle from a closet and says he's going to take back the farm. He raises the rifle to shoot the sheep, but Angus steps in front of it saying, wait, the sheep is one of us. That's how we made the advances, human DNA, mine. What?
So this sheep is essentially a human-sheep hybrid.
Yeah.
At least has some human DNA in it.
Yeah, it's like, he's one of us. He's your brother, basically. Like,
Ugh. And I just got done fucking him.
So he's an ancestral sheep fucker.
Oh.
Oh
Well,
my
if
God.
it was his own DNA, would it be masturbation? But it's still, I don't know. We're getting too off on
But
that.
if you say it's his, like your brother, family being, oh, you're right. Everybody, self masturbation, sheep fucking, fucking yourself, fucking your clone. This is a rabbit hole.
But it's still bestiality because there's still
Yeah, it's
DNA,
still a
there's
sheep.
still sheep.
There's
yeah.
still a sheep.
But if it's his DNA,
Yeah, that's a good.
But then again, it would still be incestuous because you could still say like if
'Cause
he
I
had
think
a
it is
daughter,
like a
it would still
brother,
be
yeah,
his
yeah,
DNA, and then
or
he
like a
fucked his
brothers that
daughter.
share some DNA.
Sure,
too.
so it's incestuous.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
incestuous.
Yeah.
masturbatory incestuous bestiality sheep fucking.
Yes.
There we go. I think we're gonna call it that. Move on. We'll be done.
Done.
So while this bonkers conversation is going on, the sounds of sheep banging against the doors are heard and hippies shouting. They're almost in. So for some moronic reason, Henry tosses Angus the rifle.
Yeah.
And says goodbye and leaves him to join the others as they run upstairs.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. I mean, I
I don't
understand if you
understand
walk
either.
away, that's fine. Why the fuck did you give him the gun back?
Exactly.
Just you got sheep bursting in. Keep the fucking gun.
Exactly. I don't understand that either. So the sheep begin breaking in through the windows. Outside, all the victims of the bloodbath slaughter now. They begin to rise up as sheepatar zombies.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Again, great effects.
Great effect. Out there, the group Hippie, Mac, and Henry, they're on this upstairs balcony outside that overlooks the farm, and they see Angus and the perfect sheep making their way through the herd,
Not being attacked.
and Henry says, "Oh, he's going for the barn, the plane in the barn. He's going for the plane." And this is when they notice that Henry has been bitten now, and Hippie thinks it was from Sheepatar Grant. Henry begins to panic, and Hippie tries once again to use her hippie dippy chakra mode
You're
on
a
him.
tree.
But this time Henry doesn't bite, and he says, "I'm not a tree, I'm a fucking sheep." So it doesn't work. But Mac chimes in and says, "No, you're a man, and your father would be so proud of you."
And this helps, and it
And
helps.
that what?
I guess his balls drop, and now he's
Yeah.
man.
And he looks down, and from out of nowhere, magically appearing in his hand is the Golden Shear Award. Which
That's a
last
good
week,
point.
Which
I
last
know-
we saw was on the floor
In the kitchen. Yeah.
But now it's in his hand. So where'd that come from?
Whatever.
We cut to Henry loading the two others in the car. I'm like, wait, whoa, how the fuck did they get from the house past the hundreds of killer sheep to the car?
Yeah, he did say there's a fire escape in the back, but they never show him going down the
No,
fire
but they're
escape.
saying
And
that- they make it
also,
sound
my
like the house
thoughts
is
surrounded
by sheep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if it's that easy, why all the drama? Just walk out there.
Just
I was like,
Sneak out the back.
I was like, they just completely killed the drama there.
Because
suspense.
it's like there's no other sheep around. They didn't even have a moment outside the car.
No. Yeah,
So-
they can sit there and just talk. It's like, so Henry says he's going to stay behind and stop Angus, and Mac hands him the shotgun. And he tells Hippie that the next time she sees him, she might have to kill him. She says no. They kiss. Henry gives her the shotgun, and he leaves, and he tells him that I'm going to blend in.
Oh, yeah.
By this, the camera pans over to the white furry car seat covers. Holy shit. It cut to Henry crawling on his hands and knees through the herd of killer sheep,
With
holding the Golden Shear Award in one hand, whispering himself, I'm a sheep, while covered
in this white
in
furry car seat
car seat
covers.
cover. The whole visual of this, and even the idea of itself is just pure bonkers. This is ridiculously
So
insane.
he's walking through the prairie or crawling on his hands
He's
and
crawling
knees.
his hands and knees.
With sheep eating the remains
Yeah.
of some of the guests.
Exactly.
So it's kind of reminiscent in The Walking Dead when they cut open the zombies
And they
and
smear the
dress
gut.
themselves in the guts and viscera
Yeah.
and then walk through the herd of walkers.
Yeah,
But he's just doing it's the same thing except he's wearing
a furry car seat. But he gets stopped. Comes to a stop halfway. He's talking to himself, and then all of a sudden, he gets mounted from behind and humped by a sheep. I'm going to say that again. He gets mounted from behind and fucked by a sheep.
and he really doesn't seem
No,
like terrified by
what
this.
is happening?
He just
in
seems
this
slightly
movie?
annoyed. He's like, oh god,
This movie is
bonkers.
off the chart. It's insane. So we've had man fucking sheep, and now sheep fucking man, and the man just like, okay, I guess I'll just take
He's
this.
kind of taking it for a while, and he's like, all right, enough of this.
And
I
then
got to
he-
get going.
yeah, and then he like reaches between his legs and stabs the sheep in the balls with the Golden Shear Award. And the sheep bleeds in pain, runs off, but in doing so, it pulls the furry seat cover off of Henry. And however,
with all this loud bleeding, all the other sheep look at him,
everybody's looking
and
at
even
Henry.
the zombie
sheep-atar
sheep,
zombies,
yeah.
they look at him.
And you're like, oh, he's Fucksville.
But however, the bite. So the sheep just look at him, and they don't give a shit.
They don't care.
So Henry's like, oh, well, I just did all that for nothing.
Yeah, I just got fucked by a sheep for nothing.
Exactly.
That's a weird sentence I just said. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go make that a shirt. I just got fucked by a sheep for nothing. So Mac and Hippie are in the car. They're talking, and they decide to take the offensive. So Hippie stands up through like the sunroof of this car with the shotgun while Mac's driving through the field of sheep, and Hippies just start shooting zombie sheepatars as they drive by. And I call fucking bullshit on this, because there's no way she would be that accurate of a shot. First of all, she's never fired a gun before. She's in a moving vehicle, and she's not only that, she's not holding the shotgun properly, so the kick and the recoil alone will cause her to miss, not to mention possibly even drop the gun due to the moving, swerving vehicle. Bullshit.
You have a problem with that?
Yeah. Sheepatar zombies, I can get behind. I can buy that.
What was it? It was like incestuous masturbatory bestiality.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah. But this bitch shooting on a moving car
But a hippie
with
a
accuracy.
shotgun. A hippie with a shotgun.
That's just
I'm
too
out.
far. That's too far.
I'm out. So anyway, Angus makes it to the plane, and he has his pants back on all of a sudden. New, by the way, just so the pants are on, and he starts the propeller, and then he goes back to get the perfect sheep, and he tries to pick it up, and he begins to convulge and transform, and he's
kind of wiggling and convulsing.
Yeah.
His teeth are falling out, and
Henry enters the dark barn, and we hear growling coming from the darkness. And all of a sudden, Angus charges out of the shadows and pins Henry against the wall or a fence or something. And Angus attempts to punch Henry, but misses, allowing Henry to run and try to hide. But he doesn't do a very good job because Angus gets his hands on him pretty quickly. And Henry stabs him in the neck / shoulder with the Golden Shear Awards. And this causes Angus to recoil in pain, but that just makes him continue to violently transform even further. And this morphine effect is pretty awesome.
it's really good. I mean, a lot of horror fans will probably be familiar with werewolf transformation scenes.
It's very similar to a werewolf.
But
like
it's a
werewolf in London howling.
were-sheep
Yeah,
of transformation scene, a sheepatar transformation scene.
It's
And
really good.
Really cool
It
looking.
is.
Yeah, it's really good.
One of the best effects in the movie. And so Henry gets his hands on the rifle, but Angus just knocks it out of his hands and tosses Henry down. Now we see the plane begins to roll forward off its chop blocks and starts moving forward.
Just kind of randomly moving throughout the field.
Yeah. And Henry and Angus have now exited the barn. They're outside. Now, the dog from earlier, from way before, shows up and comes back. And Henry has it basically shepherd Angus.
Yeah.
So this giant, like, 7-foot sheepatar
Sheepatar.
is being shepherded
By
and
a
cornered by, like,
sheepdog.
a little itty-bitty sheepdog.
Which
This is fucking ridiculous.
yeah, it's pretty fucking ridiculous. But at the same time, it's like, sheep are
And when-
scared and mesmerized by these dogs.
What
I
makes
mean,
it even more bonkers is it actually works. Not the intended, but it works. Because Angus like squats down, and it seems like just like take on his more chill and more submissive attitude and posture.
under the dog's barking.
And the barking, yeah. And the plane comes rolling into view behind Angus. Henry tells the dog to hold him. Hold him, boy. Hold him. And the plane rolls in closer. The dog runs away. This snaps Angus out of his trance or whatever it is. But it's too late. And just like Indiana Jones, the plane's propeller slices into Angus's back. Blood sprays everywhere. And Angus is chopped up by the propeller. The plane rolls on as Angus
falls down dead.
glances at or as Henry glances at his bite wound or something.
Mhm.
Behind him, Angus stands back up, all bloody, and he's missing some skin and wool from his face. He's a mess. Tucker comes roaring in from out of nowhere on an ATV.
Nowhere, just rolls in on an ATV.
With this like tank of like goo on his back. Like,
it's like a
hose
tank
gun.
of liquid on his back.
Yeah, and attached like this hose and this like spraying gun. And he runs up to Sheepatar Angus and sprays or squirts this gooey liquid into Angus's mouth, turns and smiles at Henry like, hey, I'm here to save the day.
I'm back, baby.
Shocked to see him, Henry's like, what? Are you okay? And before he finishes the sentence, Tucker shoves the nozzle into Henry's mouth, blasts him in the mouth with the goo as well. Henry shakes a bit. He's like, oh, he starts shaking,
Convulses a little
like
bit.
we've seen, but he's okay. And they turn their attention to Angus, who is now back in human form,
but he's all fucked
And
up
he's
from,
lying on the ground.
from the propeller.
Yeah, bloody. He's missing like a giant chunk of his left shoulder. Tucker tells him to pull his finger out. They have work to do, and drives off. So there's a lot of weird news.
Maybe that's
insane.
Yeah, maybe that's pull your finger out.
I guess pull your finger out of your ass.
I
or
guess,
something like
yeah.
that. So we cut to Tucker, Hippie, and Henry standing behind the dog, which is now sheep herding the whole herd of killer sheep. Tucker says there's not enough goo for all the sheep, which are now farting up a storm. I mean,
they're all in a barn. They're all been.
No, they're still outside. They're outside.
Well, how do they get them in the barn?
They don't get them in a barn.
Yeah, they do.
Dude, what happens? They're definitely outside for what happens. Because Angus comes limping up into view, walks up to the sheep, and says that this is just the beginning. He's covered in blood, and his back. They show his back, and it is
ribs.
shredded. Like,
Ribs are
his
exposed.
His spinal cord's exposed. How is he even walking? I don't know. It's beyond belief. But it's, again, a really cool makeup effect.
He's naked. He's just,
he stands before the sheep with his outstretched arms, says, come to me, my babies. Have me again. A sheep lunges at him and bites him in the dick. It bites his dick off, but not before we see it stretched out about 3 feet.
Like a piece of taffy.
Yeah. Another sheep runs and bites him on his arm, while more sheep continue to bite Angus they all continue to fart this whole time.
They just pull him down into the
They're
farty
biting,
abyss.
eating, and farting. That's all going on. Henry pulls out the Zippo, which, again, where did he get this from? Because he tossed it at the one sheep and left it in the cave.
That's true.
So
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
He threw it at the sheep, and so where did he get the Zippo from?
More Zippos.
So he lights the Zippo and tosses it into the herd of sheep, and the 3 of them make a run for it. One last sheep fart is heard before the Zippo sets off the methane gas, causing a massive explosion. That's why they're outside, because the barn doesn't blow up.
I thought they were in a barn.
They're not in the barn. They're clearly outside.
Man, I gotta see that. No, I could have swore they were in like a.
No, because they go running and dive on the ground. They're outside.
The way I remember it, they're standing at the, at the entrance to the barn where all the sheep are herded into this like pen area. It's not necessarily a barn, but it's definitely got a roof. And then Angus walks in and he's like, oh, he gets eaten up by the sheep. They toss that in, it blows up because shit goes flying everywhere, like roof and material and stuff like that. It may not have been a closed barn. It may have just been like a big roof kind of
maybe the
area.
Sheep were in the barn.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
You were saying they. I thought you were talking about the characters. Like,
Oh,
they were
no.
clearly outside.
I'm sorry. I meant the
sheep. Okay, if the sheep were like right in the barn doorway and they throw it.
Yeah.
That's possible. That might be the case. I thought you were talking about the character. Like, no, they were clearly outside. Anyway, fade to black. And we fade in on Henry and Tucker filtering a sheepatar through a corral. Tucker injects the goo into its mouth. Hippie walks up, joins them, and hands Henry a brochure for organic farming, the sustainable future. Grant pops up from off camera.
Back in human form.
The guys release him from the corral. Grant's crying about eating a rabbit, and he joins this group of other humans that have now been turned back from the goo. You see them all huddling up in the corral.
They've been
wrapped
reverted
in blankets.
Yeah, they've been converted back to human form.
Mac comes up to them and offers them a snack of mountain oysters.
And
Henry
if
and
you
Tucker
don't know
refuse.
what those are,
but Hippie says, "Sure, I'll eat one. I eat a bit of seafood." Eats one, says, "Oh, this is good." Henry leans in and whispers in her ear, "You know you're eating sheep's balls, don't you?" She spits it out. They all laugh. Zoom out on the happy group talking and laughing. Cut to the sheepdog sitting underneath a tree. The camera zooms in on the dog. It bleats. It baaaads.
Mm-hmm.
Roll credits. That's motherfucking black sheep.
Black sheep.
Black sheep. So, that fresh in our head. Let's go. Moving on to favorite kills.
There can be only one. Favorite kill.
All right, favorite kill of this movie. There's some interest kills, but not like major they focus on. So what's your what's your favorite?
Well, there's
kill or
lots of
death?
effects and
A lot of
deaths.
effects, yeah.
Yeah, lots of effects. And one of my favorite, I guess, kills, but he didn't die because you see him run around later on. Was the guy who gets his lips bitten off? That's a pretty awesome effect, but he didn't die necessarily because he was asked. He's like, "Help me!" and his lips are gone. He's just like,
Yeah, but he gets bit by a sheep again though.
It's
After
true,
that,
it's true.
I assumed he died because
Yeah,
he's like, help me, and then he gets attacked again by a sheep, and the other guy runs
that's true.
off.
So that's my favorite. I like that.
I'm not sure because there's a lot of. I don't know if I could pick just one death in this because
Because there's a lot of great effects.
Angus is vicious. The dick biting and all that's rough, but kind of like Poultrygeist, like that whole sheep massacre scene is just
Great.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah.
And I like like you with the man with his lips. I like the
Because
girl,
that was part of his.
yeah.
that
I like
massacre
the
scene.
girl who got her intestines ripped out by the sheep,
Mhm.
and so I would probably go with the intestines, but I'm just gonna say that whole scene is my
Yeah,
favorite because
yeah.
it's so much in one. That whole sheep slaughter bloodbath is awesome.
Just wackiness. Yeah.
So
I also liked Angus getting in his sheepitar form getting chopped up by
and
the propeller.
propeller?
That's pretty good.
it was
too.
pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so there's that. I mean, not a very defined favorite
Right.
kill this
Right.
week,
Right.
but there it is.
Yeah.
Moving on to the odds and the ends.
Not only did they watch these films, they researched them too. Ugh, what is wrong with these guys?
All right, ratings. IMDb gives it 5.8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 70% on the tomato
Wow.
meter. 70%.
That may be
That
one of
is
our
a
highest.
fresh tomato. I
Yeah.
mean, it has a nice red tomato on their
Mhm.
on their site, but a 53% audience score. And Amazon, 4.1 out of 5.
Wow. That's pretty
so
high.
pretty high range for this movie. Plot keywords. Again, I write these down before I even watch the movie. So I always so I write down ones. I'm like, holy shit, what am I in for? So, I wrote down animal castration, mad lamb disease, 20-something, which I just thought was a weird plot
That's a
keyword
weird one,
Yeah, for any
yeah.
movie. Wilhelm scream and deoxyribonucleic acid. I can't pronounce it, but it's some kind of crazy scientific acid. Here, maybe you can read it. You want to take a look at that?
Let's see.
You're the medical science.
Nope, I can't. Deoxyribonucleic acid.
There you go. Better than I did.
Yeah.
Better than I did. So those were the plot keywords for this one. Trivia. Some good trivia for this. I mean, there's a lot more than I thought I would get. We already covered the fact that this, Aaron, you mentioned earlier, this was Weta Workshop,
Right.
the people who did Lord of the Rings. Great job. I've said it
Yeah.
before, but I'm going to say again.
Fantastic.
Really good job in this. Really fun. The scene with the sheep driving the Land Rover took several days to film, while the scene with the Land Rover going over the cliff was done in one take, obviously.
Yeah. It's funny because it was such a short scene.
It's like not even 2 seconds. It's like flash and done. Director Jonathan King did a lot of the noises for the Grant sheep monster, so sheepitar.
Mhm.
Tammy Davis stayed and worked on a farm as research for his role as Tucker, which is where a guy's name is Tammy. But I guess it's a New Zealand thing.
That poor bastard's
Yeah.
name is Tammy.
Yep.
That sucks.
So this was released in Spain as a double feature with Severance, another movie. Someone during this movie, Hippie, I think, mentions contacting the MAF. And the MAF stands for New Zealand's Ministry of Agricultural and Forestry. So that's
Okay.
what that is. They also talk like Wicca or Weta. They say something else with a W, another organization. I couldn't get that one. It took 4 people to operate the giant Grant sheep monster suit. So 4 people to operate sheepitar.
It's big.
It is big.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like I said, if that was real life, that's easily like 7 feet tall.
If that, yeah, maybe bigger.
So, okay, we talked about when Miss Mack is preparing a haggis. She recites. Apparently, this is what it's like: the opening lines of "Address to a Haggis" by Robert Burns. And for those of you who don't know, haggis is traditionally made of sheep's heart, liver, lungs, and stomach, which is why we said cannibalistic earlier. The cave tunnel was actually a built set for the movie, which doesn't surprise me at all. That's director Jonathan King played the man who was pulled down by a sheep while trying to find his car keys in the slaughter.
Oh, okay,
That's the
yeah,
director.
yeah.
He's also the one who does the Wilhelm scream. Then that's the Wilhelm scream. Guy.
Yeah.
Mike, the farm guy, reads The Penguin History of New Zealand just before the sheep kills him, which is the book he's reading while he's cooking. And this is a well-known book by Dr. Michael King, which is the father of Jonathan King, the director.
So the guy who's reading the book during the slaughter.
Michael reads the Penguin History of New Zealand, which just before he's killed by the sheep. So Mike, the farmer guy.
So weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real life amputee Jono Monks plays the man whose leg is bitten off by a sheep.
He throws his leg at it.
Yeah, he throws the leg at his sheep. At the end of the movie, Experience or Hippie is we already talked about Ram Sesco. So that's it. That's the trivia for this.
All right.
So that brings us to the budget game.
Time for Aaron to blow his wad with the budget game.
All right.
Sadly though,
All right. Is it in New Zealand
no.
dollar dues?
no budget,
Ah.
but we have guess the gross.
Okay.
So I have two numbers here. We have 8 weeks domestic, so what it made in New Zealand in 8 weeks in theater, and then what it made worldwide. I had those two numbers I was able to find out. So let's take your guess at these.
Okay, domestic New Zealand. I'm sure a lot of people poured out to see it because it's a homegrown movie and it's just not that big a country. So I'm gonna guess 2.5 million. And worldwide, I'm gonna say 15.
15 million. Well, you totally blew your wad on both of them.
No.
8 weeks domestic, total gross $84,283.
Oh.
And
Oh.
worldwide gross $4,863,434.
God damn, I'm bad.
So wow, that was a
Yeah.
big overshoot. That was a big load.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so there we go. That's all we got for the budget game today.
I just bust.
Busted.
Bust.
So that brings us
Bust
to
from my underpants area. Just bust. From my neither region. Bust. Sorry.
we move on to 5-star reviews.
Is this your guilty pleasure? 5-star reviews.
Now these are 5-star reviews I get from Amazon or wherever else I can find them. There are pages and pages of this. There were some decent ones. From Tamsin, I've bought this movie 3 times. After watching it with friends, it keeps disappearing from my house. 5 star.
That's funny.
Yeah. From Maniac, this movie wasn't that bad. This movie delivered. There was nothing to fear. LOL. 5 stars.
Okay.
Yeah. From Customer, bah. Killer sheep, gore galore, perfect horror movie for people who root for animals to kill humans. I love cheesy animal horror movies. 5 stars.
It's a weird subculture of people.
Yeah. Next one. Honestly, this is one of my favorite memories from college. I watched it with 2 of my best friends and my boyfriend. I laughed so hard. So much gross fun. If you aren't too squeamish, it really is a really funny, really messed up, wonderful movie. Way better than a lot of junk that has been coming out lately. Hostel, Saw, Human Centipede, etc. And really has a plot, character development, and some great jump scares. 5 stars.
I don't know if I agree with the jump scare so much.
There weren't really, there's not really jump scares at all. Now, again, I'll say this is better than like Hostel, Saw, and Human Centipede. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends. Because I enjoyed Saw, but I don't enjoy like Saw 28.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Well, I'm just taking the first one. First Hostel, first Saw, first Human Centipede.
I like them. Yeah,
I like them too. Would you say those are better?
they're different. They're just
I know,
totally
that's what I'm saying,
different.
Totally
yeah.
different styles of horror movie. From Echo Lemming, Zombie Sheep, Were Sheep, New Zealand. 5 stars. Quick, simple. That's it.
Okay.
That's all he needs for 5 stars.
Yeah.
And
Just stating facts.
yeah.
No opinion, just facts. 5 stars.
Melinda Kerr, best movie ever. 5 stars.
Wow.
Period
that's-
behind each word. And the last one from Brandy. This movie is great. This is one of the best movies of all time. Of course it's terrible, but it's better than Sharknado. 5 stars.
Best movie of all time. Fuck Citizen Kane. fuck, Titanic or whatever you want to say, but yeah, best movie ever because it's better than Sharknado.
5 stars.
Some pretty idiotic logic there.
Indeed. All right, so brings us to our final words. Aaron, what's your final thought on this?
So bad, it's good. I enjoyed it. It was a fun watch. The effects were off the chart, amazing. Really, again, Weta Workshop did a fantastic job. The acting was good. They didn't shove they really could have really hammered it more. I mean, they pushed the limits with the hippie chick and what she'd said, but it was done well.
It wasn't overly preachy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they did it really well. The acting, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I mean, I think everything about it was in a nice, perfect little package of a movie.
I'm right there with you, man.
Mhm.
So bad it's good. I highly recommend trying to find this movie and watch it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got it on Amazon for like $6-8. I mean, really cheap. It's
Yeah.
well worth that. If you just want
Mhm.
to watch it on like YouTube or Google Play or something like that for whatever the rental, if you can find.
Yeah,
do
check it
but
out.
to
Get
me,
some
it's-
buddies. Yeah,
it's
watch it.
really fun. I agree with you. Like the hippie, I hate hippies. Obviously, I can't stand hippies annoy the shit out of me, and vegans and all that. But, they did it fairly well. Like I said, it wasn't too overdone. Like
It
her
was
hippie
the right time.
Her hippie mojo bullshit was actually, done comically well at the right time.
At the right times,
And
yeah.
like I said, it was not overly preached with animal rights, this and this. Because I don't know if that was necessarily the goal of this movie was to preach that. It just that was her character,
Mhm.
so they stayed
Yeah.
true to the
Mhm.
character. So, but totally check this movie out.
Mhm.
So to Milo P, thanks for throwing this one
Yeah,
out. This
thank
was a
you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
That's gonna do it for us for this week. We will be back in a week with our 1-year anniversary episode.
I guess so, yeah.
Big
52.
52 will be our 52nd episode. So in the meantime, follow us on Facebook. Check out our website, horriblehorrorpodcast.com. We're on Twitter at So Bad It's Scary. We're also on Instagram at Horrible Horror Podcast. And you can download and listen to us at Podbean at horriblehorror.podbean.com. And of course on iTunes, you can download, subscribe, 5-star us, do all the good stuff. One more reminder of the interview we had with Miss Sarah Wagenvood.
Wagenvood.
That will be Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday. We'll have it. I'll have it up and repost it as a bonus episode hopefully before our next week's episode itself. So that'll be a little bonus content. Check that out. And all right, that's it, Moon Goons. Another one in the books. So hope you have a bad. I don't know where I'm going with that. I was going to say bad night, but I'm bad as in good. But bad.
I was going to say don't be bad this weekend.
Hey, that's better. Much better. I don't know. All right. Fuck it. I'm out.
All right.
Later.
Bye.